a house designed after a winery. Welcome to Villa del Cigliano in Pasadena, California. As a real estate appraiser, I come across some great history, and I just love to share it. Sharing history about real estate, especially in this area of Southern California and Pasadena, is just something I thoroughly enjoy. So I'd like to share a little piece of this history for you here and tell you a little bit about it, and then you can read a little more about it in my more detailed blog. Hi, I'm Glenn Kangas from the SoCal Appraisal vlog and GA Appraisals Inc. And I'm here to tell you about some great history in Pasadena. I'm on Fairfield Circle, and I've got a property here that I just appraised for the purchase. It's in escrow right now. The asking price is a little over $5 million. This house here was built for Katherine Van Dyke. Katherine Van Dyke was a widowed millionaire socialite. She came from a millionaire family, married a wealthy businessman, and traveled the world. She was trained as an artist. In 1930, she commissioned to have this home built, and she wanted it built and designed after the Villa del Cigliano Winery in Tuscany. So the design of the house exactly matches the winery in Tuscany. They actually have a bottle of wine from that winery. The winery still exists, and there's a bottle of wine from that winery with that picture on it in the house here, which was pretty cool when I was appraising the property. And Katherine herself was a noted artist. She did pastel portraits of children and landscapes. A couple of really interesting things about the Katherine and that time. Number one, it was commissioned in 1930, which, as you know, was after the stock market crash of 1929 and at the beginning of the Great Depression. So for a house of this size and this kind of cost to be built at that time was pretty unusual. According to Tim Gregory, the biographer, the permits that he pulled up, it cost $56,000 to construct this house and the garage, which was a pretty heavy price back then, especially for during the Great Depression. Now, Katherine was an interesting person. Her husband had passed away in 1921, but she continued with her children. She lived in France after that, and then she built this house here in Pasadena. And Katherine continued to travel the world even after her husband's death, and even after building this property. She actually only lived in the house until 1936. But really fascinating, the beginning of the house and the reason it was built and the time it was built, which again was very unusual. Now, the style of the home is considered Beaux Arts, which is basically a Greco-Roman style. Of course, it was built after the winery, but the Beaux Arts style was really popular in Southern California from about 1900 to about 1920. So it's not normal for this time period, but it's certainly something that's common in Southern California. An interesting fact about the Beaux Arts architectural style is that it was mostly commercial properties that were built in the Beaux Arts style in Southern California, not as many residential properties. Now, the architect for this property was Edward C. Kent. Now, Edward C. Kent is not one of the most famous architects of the time period, but he really did do a fair number of significant works, but not all of them were residential. He only did a handful of residential properties specifically with his name on them from about 1904 till actually 1930 was the last one that I found in history, and there was a big gap actually from the early 1910s till 1930. And that was because Edward C. Kent worked mostly for larger firms. He didn't work on his own, he worked for larger firms. And when he worked at larger firms, he helped design the Redondo Beach Pavilion, which is still there. He also worked for a firm that at the time did the Los Angeles Coliseum, and he also worked for another firm that helped build the U.S. Grant Hotel in San Diego. So Edward C. Kent was kind of an unusual architect. I would love to find out the history of why she picked him, but he wasn't one of the main architects of the time. He was someone who just had a few pieces here and there. He later in his life actually became a rancher too. He lived way out in Covina in the San Gabriel Valley and had a ranch out there. Just the fascinating thing about this property was, number one, the time that it was built was very unusual. The style was actually very unusual for that time frame, and just the history of the owner who had it built, And then if you read the rest of my blog, there's more detail on future owners and who they were and what they did. So there's just a great piece of history for you to learn about in Southern California and Pasadena in particular. This Beaux Arts designed Tuscan villa designed after a winery in Tuscany. I love the history of real estate and the history of architecture in Southern California. I just am so excited to be appraising in an area with so much history, and I really like to share that with you and let you experience what I get to experience on nearly a daily basis. So I just appreciate the fact that you take your time to follow this, and I hope that you get enjoyment out of it.
If you enjoy the history of architects, architecture, and real estate like I do, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube page and hit the bell to be notified whenever a new video is posted, so you don't miss any of the fascinating history. If you are an agent with a historical home that is listed or is an upcoming listing and want me to do a vlog on that property, either call or text me at 626-264-4345 or email me at gaappraisalsinc@gmail.com. You can also check out my website at www.gaappraisalsinc.com to find links to all of my social media. No matter how you connect with me, I hope you enjoyed being informed about the history of real estate in Southern California.